당은 주게된 납심다 뇌심 로다 지속을 개시 체를 내자당도 나라 나 로다 세디 안저 레군데 여바치라 지나 레군데 여러 마스 레군데 여바레 이나다 여바리데 레군데 여마레세다 제다 안데 지 가사 세디기 규다 견라데네 겨와 마레 제사다 규다기 여마레세다 내내기 겨와 ngama chima mere chisada kyewa ngama le shine setili kyewa lempare se ayo mare setine ane shichi kyewa chima kyewa lingire setine ayo mare se odu shine on kurtip denigi me yo mare sembe samnoti tawi tawadi da lokta se chanzo deneshi o jweti ko kishira.
And good afternoon. This morning we concluded looking at the 10 non-virtuous actions, finishing those, the final 2 to do with speech, and then looks at the 3 to do with the mind, covetousness, harmful intent, and wrong views. And in wrong views, we saw that several illustrations were given, and it comes down to having as a basis something that exists, a view that a view that exists, or something that exists, but believing it does not, such as cause and effect, past and future lives. So, taking something which does exist, a karmic cause and effect, or a reincarnation, and believing that it does not exist, and that is a wrong view. And if we didn't finish with the questions this morning, so if you have some questions, then we can start with that now.
It's not so much a question, but I suppose just around the propelling this upcoming. So with all last kind of objects such as my car and something like that, we have lots of different parts of the car for the car to actually move forward. Is the propelling karma a little bit like that? So it is a complete karma. It's kind of what's got a energy about it that can move it forward. Would that be?
So the question then is about the karmic seed that is a propelling karma. Does it have an energy about it that it enables it to propel a future life or project a future life? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
Then the kitona you have any supplement that they send up a supplement chicken. A supplement that cure chema panic in Upa yard.
Then
as you for your dependent worker, motor the yaman a maid on that, penny cavity, Upa yona, then it can cook it.
He said that Nuba Yorza Corona Keg in Nuba Yorba didn't do but the Ungurua. So now the 7 Sanamasanada, 7 said that to matter Angela Kurush, Kudu or a Kush, the naked Kush, and Nuba Yorba or Ajing in Nubachu. The Pembe lay said, Corona. Pemba Zamji Nubash Mother Shen Nubayama, Kiawai Pembele said, Korongi, the Pemba Makiwal Chimalia, Kiagi Chimato, Les Mother Shen, I am a lady, Nubarutinish. That chicken, Delia, setting to Nebadachik, you want us already, and Kishana Chagor.
Like Brussels, the name doesn't get so. Then they have supper and curry in it, loop by your eggs, but he laid out somewhere yet. Then he did that and that's a cut say to this. Then they did kill a chima, penny to get it. Would let some but then the young triple media this. That's it and go America.
They call it to get the Gaji Pembe said, look, you watch him, give a leg, nobody or the on the period.
So yes, in brief, yes. So a karmic seed that has now I'll translate the same word in different ways, the potency, the potential, the capacity, so that's all the same word, to propel a rebirth, then that what leads it to happening is this natural capacity or potency for a rebirth to be propelled. So that's a propelling karmic imprint, but every karmic imprint possesses a potency, a potential, the potential to ripen into a result. but it's that which is a complete karmic cause that can propel a rebirth. So it can lead to rebirth in one of the realms, but other imprints will impact how that life plays out, not just that one imprint. So, for example, the lifespan and so forth. But all karmic imprints have this potency, this potential, this capacity to ripen into an effect. Okay, good.
Got it.
Tseppo, and then Peter afterwards.
Yeah,
I got it.
My question is just about when you have you have like this firm rebirth, and then there are a whole lot of karmas that are also like competing karmas of habits and things. And I'm wondering about maybe a habit you haven't even died, maybe it's anger or for patience or something like that. When you die and you're hopefully you'll create all the karma that might create bad karma. What is the content? You get a projecting karma for whatever type, but states of good rebirth. What about the habits? Are they going to would those good or bad habits carry on, or would it be a whole new mix of good or bad?
Okay, just make sure I've got it right. So we have our various habits, some desirable, some less so. And through this, we create further imprints through these expression of these habits. So then when death comes and we move on to our next life, those karmic imprints will travel with us. But what about those habits?
No, we have projecting karma to get it.
Yes.
But is there any, those habits that have come from past habits? Is there any continuity from life to life? Already projecting get off on the different seed ripening. Is there any continuity of the habits from the immediate past?
Okay. So let's say in this life one has a good habit of patience, then does one carry that good habit of patience to the next life? Or is that lost?
How much transfer is there from one life to the adjacent lives, or is there just a whole new mix because you finished that life?
Okay.
Dene also she didn't dene chipping dene application. Yes. Dene can take carry also come she draw with idea. Dene go she take you want to chinning, not so seven supper sacrifice. Seven supper sacrifice. Dene in also she do. Dene Chedi Pampele sauce. Dene kill a sapadi Pampele Sosokora Pampele Yore. Chitas Sapabusugide. Dene kill a diki gongshi, kill a gemma Yorepen, Yamana kill a sapa, Dan gongshi sapa dramid and namdu yoki yada. Then it's a di. Na super yapoider. Any Gary Apples is the Diki one to Chin, Gary Apple Circle, they are called City Apple. Any she do, they pump in a supper wing and kill us up at clear. Then a Kirachema. It is a so cook sheet data in your pen, and that chicken, yes, chicken, your mother.
The Pembi said the Korongi, the nobody miniki or lemba, some chichagore.
The digging like shipment.
Penki ma give me give a lamb pembas and the Ushaba, so many Ushabata, pembas and the mini Ushaba, so sure pemba. Mini give a chimada, lesh, my key at some shagore. The Gomshi got a yours and then a chola, Kayoko Mao, but you watch chola come Gomshi, Dibola, come Kaviki, and Kawaki, Chungurua. These are the Tedelianchi, Gejula, Junju, whichever and Digi, Devo the Mombana, Kawachimana, Kawal Jella, Kawadi, Yungorua. Setilia, Dibalia, Chick, Gawur Chevene, Digi, Jevotilla, Mombana, Dibu active Chungura. She's a leg, Jevotilla, the Koran, naming it, Tabi, using it, Koran, Jevola, Sigmido, Sumshigua. Then Pinji Lake, naming it, give a Chima, Kawana, Kiva Lemba, Tara, naming it, yes. That dinner, Tabi Jevola, I'm going to launch such a dam, Denegi, Yautu, Cavayon, Tabi level. Dine, Gudini devoted in Yama Comshi, the Denegtone, and the Nima Diva Chevana Diva la Kawia, Dene Energy Gawa Che de Bakamshin, Dewa Gawa Pomshi, de Kawia, the Yunguresi to Singura, the Chesanemi to W to Bukuti into said, she's not Penji Leokron Minima, Gawa Lemba Sam, that dinner, Dick to Serva, that Zendru, that Denegi, Tano Gavi, our Karajuna, Terra Korongi, Gawa, Devudi, Kaka, Los Mingua. Dinajing on the Settle Simchel Social Yan, Kawacha, that Dinixin, the Shuking Yatewode, Ayua.
En så på det så, det kun givet til det så på det så. Det kan være tema, altså det kan gyden give på. Det jam at så på gemeinde sinde, gyden give på yesterday.
Then the Yunguru did.
Der kom sig.
Did the Yunguru did it?
Man på sats.
The Yunguru did you serve command the Korong Cuting de Wimura, and then she gets 27 Korong Cuting de Lirua.
That's two.
In a little while, we'll come on to the various ripening effects, the various different types of ripening results, of the different types of ripening results. So a propelling karmic imprint leads solely to the next rebirth. So that is the fully ripened result of a propelling karmic imprint. But a wide variety of karmic imprints ripen at that time as well as throughout the life. So so one type of ripening effect is the fully ripened result. Another is the environmental result, so the kind of environment one is in. Then the third is that of the causally concordant result, which has its own two divisions. So karmic seeds can ripen in different ways, as a fully ripened result, as an environmental result, and a causally concordant result. So the causally concordant one is what you are referring to. So if in this life one has developed a particular habit, one will have created a lot of karmic seeds in dependence on that habit, whether it's patience or anger, whatever it may be, virtuous or non-virtuous imprints, but an abundance would have been created. But then to come to the question though about the context, in the context of habits. So if one has a habit, let's say, of patience in this life, that one would have created a lot of karmic seeds, virtuous karmic seeds through habit, of patience, through this strong habitual tendency. So one is likely, well, in fact, one will then have a similar, maybe you could say personality, a tendency for patience because of this this habitual tendency. So this will be experienced as the causally concordant result. So one will continue with that habit, whether it's virtuous or non-virtuous. So maybe we could say one's personality type may well be reflected in the next rebirth if that rebirth is suitable to the expression of that personality type. So maybe I'm expressing it like that, the translator, maybe that's then a little clear. And this is the case with all habitual tendencies that one has. So if one develops a habitual tendency to joyous perseverance, perhaps brought it into this life and continue to develop it in our next life, one will have a tendency to be virtuous, to be drawn to virtue, to be drawn to virtue, to want to engage in virtue, and to take joy about doing virtuous things. So in this way, we can see a habitual tendency traveling through from a previous life to the current life, being built on and continuing into the next rebirth.
And in a Peter.
Peter. Yeah. My question goes to ample intent, the completion. So it says the completion consists in the resolve to be alive. So you're going to do something about thought. Sometimes I'll be scared or I'm in training or something, I waked up and I was sort of defending myself against an attack and thinking that blocking of hitting to stop a person doing harm myself or others. If I do that, and then I catch myself, then that thought and do it, bang us up or something like that. But if I have that thought, does that leave the seed on any print? It's not what I'm thinking, to still leave the seed living.
So in terms of the completion of harmful intents, I'm hearing two parts. One about a dream, that you wake up afterwards and you're recalling the dream. So did I
Dream or wake?
Dream or wake? Okay. So did I accrue a complete karmic imprint if all the parts were there, and if some of the parts were missing, then would I have accrued karma, just not complete karma?
Specifically, if I have not made a resolve to it,
Okay.
do I still have an imprint?
Yeah.
It's either a pure karma.
Okay. Okay. And both the waking and sleeping state.
Nursing kollegere, det taget upp som det när det taget kommer det i biosen. Gott på nursing. Det gott Lobsang nursing. Den är genom down ett lilla stämmer upp med danta. Den har de lächan matsamwa klubna. Där de läser på det get med djup sakin your head. Det chiche. Den taget upp med ja. Det lösen gör det en ord. Det är om då. Den är kager. Den är det tar upp med det. Den är chat samarbete. Det är inget att de tar ett djurgis djup saxoning sapen saxoning.
Det är det nu som ger du nu blir sambaken du tar då upp med när de när så nu som ger när så semjun sembaji gör vad det är ni nu bättre du semjun semba det läge gör vad det är dibaji läge gör det läge gör det när läge nu bättre på den chasan så gör bäst så gör men läge gör bäst nu gör läge sa gör det lever nu bättre chans med det 지금 누가 총아체거를 레서 레라 묘소 조바다 말에마도 차상 참마상와 레지 열다
이렇게 되게 되디 송. 해서 레당 레기라이나.
아니 다디 디치를 셔와다 레기람 인다면네
레 린스 럽.
데디 레인라 거다 가서 레 말에 레 말에라데 얘기 다데 말에 납심 뇌심 세나 레 차고 말에 납심다 뇌심 그런 레레베세 말에시 납심 게비게 레지 사 여르베스는 요레시로다 납심 게비 레지 사 여르베스는 로레스
되게 치듯.
납심 게어데 레지 사 여르 요마르스 레 여르 요마르스 레지 용구리스 납심 그런 레레베 말에스는 말에서
잡고서 기네코 레던 다이 레던 메파 이코
니람 세 니람 쿠베네가 니람 메바스 니 세비네가 기쇼르바 안데 디가르다
킵베
가르케
also the sak
아딘 디르와 데디가서 니람 메네가 데디가서 니 세비네가서 벤 샬레노바 치고 선배 삼도데 니가서 니 세비네가 기쇼르바데 니람 네스 기쇼가 마타당 차산 디 차산 셰 지단데 니 세비네가 비라 안서 삼노 코나 시오라 지도 군롱이 디지긴 조아지제 양네 섬데디 니 세비네가 기쇼르와 니 쿠베 내가 소 니람 메네가 소 데네게 제제 용용으로와
개바사 이렇게
개와사요르 디바사요르와 이나 니 쿠베 내가 데네게 심제 소주 발라소바 데네게 제 용어를 데이나데 심제 소주 원에 지고 말아와 대피기 영어서 기에게 레라면서 소바 표시 용거 말에 유말에
야 특별 사기는 미세 세게
세세가 말하지 디가 제자 니람 내가 데네게 쇠비게 데네 삼로 여바서 디 삼로디 데레야 디바 용어래 용규래
이때 제가는 루던 바킨레 대송 바데데든 데레카 틱테디 이와시는 파토크메나 데네 나초 디코 추모스
예예 레라면서 저거 말해라도 레 디바지 용거를 맞아도 디레기라면서 저거 차산 다 제부터 투약이 차산이 요 말해서 그러니
So, Peter, to answer your question then, firstly, let's take whether one is dreaming or not, and in relation to answer this question, can one accrue virtue and non-virtue in one's dreams? So take it more broadly than harmful intent. Yes, one can accrue either or both virtue and non-virtue in one's dreams. there are certain non-virtues that one would not accumulate. So one may have a dream of killing someone, but that doesn't mean you accrue the karma of killing because no one has died. But you will have accumulated non-virtue because the mind is afflicted. So one can accrue virtue and non-virtue in one's dreams. The presentation here is those specifically on the waking state, but that's to answer your broader question. Then in terms of the non-virtues of body and speech, with body and speech, there, if any of the four components are missing, so you mentioned completion, so if any of them are missing, then one accumulates non-virtuous karma, but it's not a complete karmic imprint. So it can't do two things. Can't propel a rebirth, but it can ripen. But when it ripens, it won't be as strong as if it were a complete karmic imprint. Okay. Then with the as we are about to come to this next part. In the next part, we will answer your question more directly. So if harmful intent, or any of the mental non-virtues, are they karma or not? Whether they're done completely or not, the mental non-virtues themselves are not karma. There's not intention. There are karmic paths. So this is what we're about to come to. Is karma accumulated? So let's talk about harmful intent. If harmful intent is the whole act is done, is karma accumulated? Yes. Is harmful intent itself karma? No. It's a karmic path only. Whereas with the 7 of body and speech, these, when they're done completely, are both karma and karmic paths. But the mental ones are not karma. The act of the harmful intent, a wrong view, or covetousness, they themselves are not karma, but they are karmic paths. But karma is accumulated. And that's the remaining section that we'll come to.
First,
Okay. Cameras?
the quick question. You might be talking about this afterwards to Joel. This is from last night's teachings. You were talking about, Geller was talking about if regret occurs before the completion of action, then there will not be full cut. When we do purification practice, we practice with regret. So assuming we had a complete karmic in the past, and then we practice regret in purification, does that mean that the karmic is only complete at that point?
Okay, good question. So, can you remind me just what the context was last night? Which of the non-virtues, or was it said about all of them? I don't remember.
Well, I'm not sure.
Then it's okay. It's okay. So last night it was said that if before the act is completed, regret comes, then the act will not be completed. I seem to recall this was the case even if you had instructed someone and they went on to do the act, but you yourself will not accrue the complete karmic action because the completion is not there because genuine regret arose. So what about then, now the question, what about then with purification, where after the act is done, then one regrets and purifies? Yeah?
Is no longer a karmic path.
Is it no longer a karmic path? Okay, good, thank you.
Then in the Danko, so Dostok, Matruk Konda, Yamela Lato Top Matoropa, the Kuma Gyap, Shempasek, the Matre Konda, Yato Gyopa, Teni Gyopa, Teni Gyopa Money. The Kiana, then it not so the Tatuk there. Tokyo Mare, and then also the chat someone Tokyo Mare, then it goes on. Yet, also, Joma Jedu, Shafa Jedu, then he also did the chat someone Santos.
Yes.
Then he also Jella Gyopaki, and then he Chilla not to Gyopaki, then he also Gyopaki, the dump to December. Tiempo topsi pechata. Then also dadui naked ban yoke. Yamena also because tiempo topsi chetsapi. so
Nimbo to li lam yo li lam le se di lam san zo ne ba cha wo sim gi de ba cha wo sha go re. Ta ni ma le ngan zo li sam je so chi be le ku ma le ka sa we ne le di pa lo chi gi ni met ne ta wa chi ni lo ta ni ma ha shi ni le sa ba ne di le ko ro pen ji gi le sa lam san ke ji lo zo zo go re. Ko ba cha de nam shi de na ja da nu ba di ma ni ke gi nu ba nam shi de ye de re. Je za da Nimbo topshu kone xiang du so su ge nimbo topshi nimbo ga zhe de nuba che ne ndi de nuba chung su dan go wa ni ji ga sam ji le cha sang me ba su tu wa yong go wa de
ko som de ne kan what's to be chick sapo go so de le ki da de sapo en sakire
da yi le yi lam se da le se de a zo sem ju sem ba shi ruwa ben so ju be le chi sa ban le chi sen pen ji le da pen ji le ge wa chi ma ge le sa ban na pen ji sem ju sem ba de le di ma ko no gang zam ji le nu be wo du nu be chi ba sha le ko rang ga ru bo nu be sha nu be nam shi te le wa
le ki da
ne da di le ge lam na la ki shme le ko nu be so sa wa di nu ba so da ba sha nu ba le ki shi o da di da nu ba jo给的呢，写吧讲下去这个嘛了，写吧可能给搞着了吧，搞着可能的嘛，女不的嘛，那么些的女不怕人百姓的些来用了，女不的来这个女不把下女不撒本的要来做了，但这样当然这个等你不读书过年下来的，但撒本没法说活的。
When one creates performs a karmic action, let's say, it's the same word, but anyway, karmic action, whether it's...
你看这恐怕也做那啥讲吧，恐怕也做那刚把的来那现在，这里恐怕也都做些的，我这刚把的这个嘛恐怕做成多了吧，人家刚把给节节嘛下游了吧，把些下游了吧，我的把cha那现在现在来的给呢，把这刚把的做些做些的，刚把可能没把这的做的没差了的，人家刚把给节节嘛你就了的，我今天是来啥节来可能搞着的。可能给女的把下的女的那么些天都是呢，下用过来着。但真那个那么些天都是呢，其实当我最近被读书过呢，下的你嘛下火了的，没有说过的啥的，连可能都没得搞的有了嘛，其实的这些了。
So when one performs a karmic deed, whether it's a complete or incomplete karmic deed, whether it's a karmic path or just the karma, the mental facts of intention, once that's done, the imprint is placed on one's continuum. So at that point, there's no need to talk about karmic path or karmic or karma. The imprint is placed on the continuum. When one then generates regrets and purifies, one's focuses, one's hope is to weaken or eradicate that imprint. So that's what one tries to get rid of. Can be likened to if you're walking in the dust, with each step you leave a footprint, but you keep walking. So one continues with one's day with all these imprints on one's continuum. The continuum itself, consciousness, continues to change, like the person walking continues to walk, but the imprints, the karmic imprints, they have this potency that can ripen into a result. And that is what we are looking to eradicate. And that is called the karmic seed or the imprint. So then through the 4 opponent powers, or some of the opponent powers, however one purifies, the stronger those 4 opponent powers are applied, the greater the impact on that karmic seed or imprint. In other words, the more it will be reduced. So maybe its strength will be reduced a little, or quite a bit, or a lot, depending on the quality of the purification. So when one comes to, so in the talk, because a lot of this was the correction of the language, one is talking then about after the act is done, of whatever kind it was, full or complete karmic path, karmic imprint, just karma, one then just talks about the imprints on the mind or the seed on the continuum. And that is what one is wanting to eradicate through the purification. And to the extent that the purification is done with the various factors and done well, to that extent the imprint is weakened. Okay?
Yeah.
Le da legi lam ni kebar di kar resati ma shede le sa da lam legi lam sede ode na shinda de ande da le sa da de ne ge de ji lunga yi sum yi ane yu mi ge wa chu shi ge ro ande da le di na ne da di na de da le yi ji yi la semba ni le yi la legi lam ai no so da de shi nga zoge nafsim nösim logda di na nga so da simjun semba di imane leres mato legi lammares.
So there's a sub-outline in the Tibetan. We don't have it here in the English. So this comes to a brief presentation on karma and karmic paths. So we continue from where we concluded this morning, the middle page 130. So we've concluded with the completion of wrong views, and that was that first sentence. Now we come to this subsection. Among these 10, the intentions in the mind are actions, but not paths of action. Among these 10, so the 10 non-virtues that have just been presented, the intentions in the mind are actions, but not paths of action. Just as says the translator, whenever in this section, in this chapter, you see the word action, that's the English translation of the word karma. So you can, because it may be clearer. Among these 10, the intentions in the mind are karma, but not paths of karma.
Then lunga gi lam duni sa le kya yin la ane semba chube shi ya yin be le kya lam ya res ta nga gi shi ta yi gi ka zo lu gi sum che te tumbo ti da le tumbo ti da le ki le ara re le kya lam ya res.
It continues. The 7 actions of body and speech are actions or karma, and they are also paths of action since they are the basis of carrying out the intention. So the 7 actions of body, so that's the 3 of body and the 4 of speech, those 7, they are karma and paths of karma, since they are basis of carrying out the intentions.
Chizada lunga gi dumbo de karasen legi lam mi gimza karasen legi lam saidi tene semba chubi shi hinzada semba chubi shi hinza legi lam res semba ti chego sembe samlo di chese gi yudi di chuwo ro da de bena nga gi tene tsisu ma she nya de na ta tinge tsisu she gi sembe samlo di da di genje ne da tsisu ti ro ro de ne semba chubi shi se tene ki that nafsim nösim saidi
Så tycker presidenten är så på det. Alltså om man nösim
Madde de
så att
Tsukshi
Bekin
Madil de le maresha tu semba Tsukshi sembe kulon yo da sembe sun chezadi kulon de sege sembe denege shebege samno digi da semba digi chubi shiso denege kienje ne Tsukshi sheru oro da da Tsukshi shebe ne gapida le de semje semba de le charwa Tsukshi shebe ne gapju samno chiyorwa de chezadi
shit
Tsukshi shebe ne gapso kulon samno chiyorwa samno de da semje semba de Tsukshi le Tsukshi shebe le sa di chagarwa Daniel da Tsukshi shebe de kulon ro chiche losu do Tsukshi shebe kulon teja semti dinge shegin sembe semba pa ta de semba de genje de shebe de semba chubi shi sa din la goro hele ke vali de
TikTok med det
ha
det TikTok lucky det gör det de kunde också
re
lucky instant drop
den
den är det
Tsukshi shebe kapla ho
den är det
de shebe kapju semju semba chungoro de denige kulon de kulon aso de da nyimdu semju semba choro Tsukshi shebe kulon de da sonde semju semba choro de da Tsukshi shebe le sa di chagon
la beka 그래서 그래서 데미 디디 르다 칩배잖아.
자직바로다 구마구야 라부 구마구야다 되게 차상 직바 차거로와.
To say the next did about it in a stealer.
The 7 actions of body and speech are actions, but they're also paths of actions, since they are the basis of carrying out the intention. So let's talk about them being actions or karma. So let's take what we started with this morning, that of harsh speech. So there is the intention to engage in harsh speech. So this may just be a moment that it arises, the wish to speak harshly. And then one speaks harshly. So there are these 2 components that could well be just a brief moment. Perhaps anger arises and you then speak harshly. So there is the motivation to speak harshly, and then when these words are being uttered, that is called the motivation of time, and that then is the karma. It's whilst one is engaging in the activity. And it will be the same with a physical activity. You have the motivation to do it, and you have the intention, the mental factor of intention whilst you are doing it, and that is the karma.
Atadante de chico father. Eji that but it up years.
지에서 레기람이라니가래라로 징하게 나게 시다 류기 숨시들이 레기람이래 레야래서는
That 그기 얘나 메나 메나 더던 레기람 그bet 아담 레데
다다 레기람 용수 조마서 세의 차상 상국으로만 기시도 와다 차상 대변에 이 차상 상와라 차상 고구리에 세드마도 되는 저기 레지산의 차상마산은 레 말에 라요 말와 레산의 타둑 마루네 레리와 레사사로 레사이나 타둑 주요 마이나 지키 차상 주요 말와 레 마디 레기람 말에라 레기람 요소가 마일라로 사실 레기람 레기람 요소 조 마소서 레기람 이마이 세대도 스카버인 거와 이나 요소 바이면 베네 레가로치 제나 레가 차상 차고요 말와 강보 쇠나 강보 차상 쇠 차고 말와 강보 쇠 차와라 고다 차상 유 차상 차고로와 고다 유고 차상 차면 차상 쇠나 강보 쇠 바를 쇠레데 차상 차요 말와 차상 마사서 강보 요소 조요 말 세치로와 쇠 차요 말 디나시로와 고 타도 마도네 심주 셈바 계사로와 레사사로와 진짜 레레데 셈바 주비 시지 셈바 주비 시야로와 레케라미아 차로와
the central person qualified.
레기람나 레기람다 레기람야레 레기람 레야 레니가레스 다데나 타도 조나 레기람 차상상나 레기람 요소 조바 차고레스 디나데 키시 찍마산나 레기람 요소 조바 차고 말레스 강보 쇠바레데 강보 고다 중사면 강보 요소 차요 말레스 디로시다.
So staying with verbal and physical non-virtues, when the karma is created, so too is the karmic path. And this is the case whether the 4 components are complete or not. If the 4 components are complete, then it's a complete karma, it's a complete karmic path. If the 4 components are not complete, then it's an incomplete karma, an incomplete karmic path.
당시 레다 레기람다 이미 기셔 이기 셈바디게 나는 레레마도 레기람 말에서 직대 다 나기 듬보디 레다 레 듬보디 레기람야레 레야레 니가레에서 셰서 도셰 되게 되네 납심소 숨니에서 납심소 숨니 레기람이 레민도서 다 납심 뇌심 록다 숨디 그런 레기람 레마도 레마레에서 올다디 레마레스 레기람마 레마레 레기람 레스그레스다.
Concludes, the 3 of covetousness and so on are paths of action but not actions. So covetousness, harmful intent, wrong views are karmic paths but not karma.
네, 그래서 제자다 데 납심 뇌심 로다 숨보티 납심 그런 로다 그런 레레베슨 레마레스 납심 그런 레레베슨 레마레스 데네 뇌심 데 레레베슨 레마레스 다 레마레스 이나 레기 람레스 가스네 네 납심 제주 굴롱기 삼만이 뇌심 지기 셈베다 근데 가소레 납심 지기 셈베 굴롱기 데 주비시자 셈베 주비시자 데 레기 람레스
It's the fair Amakodagana.
이 납심 제고 셈비 굴롱게 삼로 땅에 납심 제조로와 제자 납심 제 굴롱게 셈바 주부 시리스 가서 굴롱 납심 제고 셈비 굴롱 계제 납심 제 중고로와 제자 납심 디 레기 셈바 주부 시리스 셈바 주세 유리스 orda 제자 시 요새 레기 람랍 주 레기 람네레스 이나 레마레스 because 레마가 뇨모레라고 뇨모 있는 레마레라고
But it goes a Koran, Yombo.
된 납심 뇌심 로다 숨도 뇨모레스 이제 거라 레마레스 ora
Goes.
The three mental non-virtues and so on. The three mental non-virtues are karmic paths, but not actions. So here, then, if it comes down to something like this. So if it asks, is wrong view itself karma? And then the answer would be no. And the same with harmful intent and covetousness. But it is a karmic path, perhaps a complete or an incomplete karmic path. And the reason for this is these three are afflictions. And afflictions are not karma. Afflictions, or to express it differently, are not intention. The mental factor of intention is karma. But intention, the mental factor intention, is not an affliction. So that is the reason why these three mental non-virtues are karmic paths but not karma, because they are afflictions.
Sheva Karine, Drugnum de Ungore, Susim Namche number Sheva, Susim Se Chikche, Dihole Towa, Dushe, Samba, Ilacheva Rabasset, Tinga Kundrangaji, Di Druk dinner, Sheva Ganakina dinner, True Yungor, that he, True Yungorwa. Shezadan controls case on a Dinium do Dugore, Desha Kena Dinium do Dugore, Marikvena, Sheva Kandeskin, Sema to Jamnijero that Dinigi given a dinner to Yungor Corona. Shezada Dingy number Sheva Jus Savagilla, D. Collar Ropa, Towa, Dushe, Samba, Ilajiva, Rapassinga Yungure. Dina Neda, Dushe de Le Mare, Towa dia Le Mare, and Chazan, Samba dia Gasol, Towa, Dushe, Ilacheva, Rapasi, Chaza Le Chago Mare. Dina the Leg and the Samba said the Chagore. Chezadi, Drugnade, not Le Mare. Tina Chiglia Chagura, Samba se Lechawar.
So,
every consciousness can be presented in this way. There's a main mind and the five omnipresent mental factors. Every single consciousness, whether, let's say, it's a non-virtuous consciousness, one is angry, or it's a virtuous consciousness, such as love has been generated. There is a main mind, as well as the five omnipresent mental factors. Those five omnipresent mental factors are feeling, discrimination, intention, mental engagement, and contact. So every single consciousness has a main mind. For example, here we'd say maybe a mental consciousness, and then it has these five accompanying omnipresent mental factors. Of these five omnipresent mental factors, there's one, feeling, that is not karma. There's a second, discrimination, that is not karma. There's a fourth, that of mental engagement, that also is not karma, nor is the final one, that of contact. The one that is karma is the mental factor of intention. So, when, so it's the mental factor of intention, and it's intention and intention only that is karma.
아닌 데네 어두시네. 제 남을 셰바기 남셔 뭔가 잘 돼.
Then for us. Because then is support hacking. Then the semper koran kong lete. Then also napsen kiona. Then napsen koran semper mare.
네 유모로 남선 유모로.
So just to complete the circle then, so why then is, for example, harmful intent not karma? Because harmful intent is not, despite the name, intention. And it's intention that is karma. What is harmful intent? It's an affliction. What is covetousness? It's an affliction. It is not intent. It is therefore, it is not karma, but a karmic path.
Oh yeah.
다 레람 다디 다 먼저 디베치션스 레람 지양스 다 디베치션 기시월다 레람 이 지양이 켜봐 지양 레람 주 지양당아서 당은 저기 되네 레람 주요 디게 지양시 지와다 양화 기시에다 되네 샬라 뜻된지 레지 고뒤디 템바오서 레 뜻다 템바 디베치션 레 뜻된지 아 자사 주 되셔야 시기에 송부연소다.
So now we come to a new outline. So what we've been looking at is in the section non-virtuous actions and their effects. And we've looked at the first part of this. This is started on page 123, actual non-virtuous paths of action. So that has been looked at. Now we come to the second sub-outline, the second part of non-virtuous actions and their effects. And that is differentiating heavy and light karma. So we see this now near the bottom of page 130. And it itself has two subdivisions. This has 2 points, the heaviness of the 10 paths of action and an auxiliary presentation of ways in which karma is strong.
다 되네게 레지와의 양아 송여도 세용의시 세지 디나리아 가라송스네 세용의시레 지위 주족도 송디에서 달리 지위게 주족 송여래서 다 지리에서 되는 이지미지 미게레단 계획레니가 원래 차상서 계획레단 미게레 가인의 디나데다 지나 레기 예 지와리에 세대다 누버체와레 누버체 용탄들이 지대 주송여래서.
So reading just the first line, levels of yogic practice states 6 ways in which they are heavy. So this word we have here as they, we should understand clearly that this refers to non-virtues, such as has just been presented, as well as virtues. So both virtuous and non-virtuous karma can be powerful or heavy through the following 6 ways. Through any of the following 6 ways.
당원벌 원벌 뒤제반이 예사 당원벌 뒤제반이 도숨만 대숨 매바 작배 레군에 나와 작보 레군에 나와서 제사다 디네길레 디사비 예레 사니 군론들이야 안에 되차 콘로 나게체 딘지가서 되죠 콘로 셰다 숨 그래서 되게 셰다 디모숨 제로와 두숨 되게 디모숨이 군에 된 작보선 그 숙천부 콘로 숙천부 군에나 나다 되네게 두시네 대대숨 매발라 되다든 계획군에 나와서 되샤 매바다 디모 매바다 셰다 매바 디숨이 군에라 대야 숨게 작보군에 나와 되게 대군로 작보군에 나오게 레디게다 레디 지와레서 레바 뉴버체와레서
Then could it den mehr Person bin bei.
지 매바 세도 콘로 매바 디무 매바 되네네 지 제다 매바 그래서 되샤 매바 수로와데 매바 숨세데
Aber den ich gestern 직전에 되게.
제자다 계심 요군에 나와라고 되 콘셰다 매바 수 잠지 요군에 나와 로와다 제자데 지 녀몽 요군에 나와데 되샤 요군에 나와 셰다 요군에 나와 마리 요군에 나와 숨셰로와 다 딜레도 저 녀몽 멤버 계심 요군에 나와서 월다 근데 나와 대숨 매바시 되샤 매바 셰다 매바 디모 매바 숨 요군에 나비게 다 군에 군로디네 잡고 나와 잡고디 배인데니게 군로 숙천부 왕이 제바이나 레디다 지와레서
Then gestern Sunda.
So of the 6, let's look at the first, conditioning. This is the strong presence or absence of the three poisons that motivates the action. There's the same three poisons as has been discussed, confused ignorance, anger, or attachment. So these are strongly present, then the karma created will be much more powerful. If they are weak, then the karma, non-virtuous karma, the karmic imprint will be much weaker. Likewise with virtue. Particularly if one is developing, say, a virtuous mind such as love. So love will be accompanied by the virtuous mental factor of non-anger. And if that is very strong, this virtuous mental factor of non-anger, then the karmic imprints created will be much more powerful than if the virtuous mental factor accompanying love, that of non-anger, is not so strong. And likewise with the opposites, non-attachment, non-confused ignorance. So the three opposites to the three poisons, the stronger these virtuous minds are, the stronger the resulting virtuous karmic imprint will be.
Teneke tepe donga ti chonga ten be khondro shiwo lang je so so khondro shiwo lang kholiya be nyu sam shuk chenbu khondro lang ji donga na tene dipa de che cha gro tene simje so ba la da ga cha gro ji bene khondro shira me de nyomo shuk shima shira me de ji puru so ba na so be di wal le sa gro wa ina da be khondro na je be khondro shuk chenbu lang je so ba na de di gen generally dibadi shukche diba chewa chago le sachi de simje so che ba da bo le shawe na dan ri a ji so gyo ya le sam da be ne bu ji chi na za su so gyo be na da ni so gyo be na ni de go da ko shi zhe sam sam je de ne ge sam da je su so gyo be na ge wa sa go ro yang de ne ge be ning jie guan jie ning jia de ning jie sam be de le ya du shi ne ji ge ge wei ge ning jie sam lu shu chen mo da jie to ne ne ko gyo ba na de yang ge wa ji shu che cha go ro jie shi sam gun long nu ba che de ge ne ji nu ba che de de ge sa be ge wa di da ge wa na da mi ge wa na da nu ba che wa cha go re gun long shu chung wei de ge sa ba de da ji da ne du shi ne kunlong xian ba dus nuba xira me duen de ne ge tone sa ba ti ge wa na de mi ge wa na le di da nuba chung wa de so da kunlong de ge da nuba che wa cha da di so do.
So for example, if let's say you come across a dog and it's acting in a way you really don't like, if you are get really upset and you hit the dog, then you may well create quite strong non-virtuous karma because of being so upset. So then the affliction of anger would be very strong. Perhaps it's a neighbor's dog that just doesn't keep quiet and you've just had enough and now you go and shut it up. Then you create quite some negative karma. But if you not under such strength of anger, but annoyed, push the dog away, hit it away, then non-virtue created is going to be much weaker, because the affliction of anger is either strong or very weak. And so with perhaps more likely, is if one, an insect, maybe a mosquito, lands on one's arm, and one just, is annoying, and you, out of habit, you kill it. So the anger there that led to you killing it was quite weak. But if you're really fed up of the mosquitoes that are keeping you awake all night, and now you're quite worked up, and then you kill it, the affliction is that much stronger, and therefore the non-virtue is going to be that much stronger. And so too, on the virtuous side, if you see an insect in a puddle of water, and it's clearly struggling to stay alive, if out of the risal of compassion for the suffering being, you reach down and pick it up perhaps on a leaf and rescue it, then quite some merit will have been acquired. But if one does the same act, but the motivation is not so good, you just, I'm not supposed to do this. So the compassion is relatively weak, still virtuous, but much weaker.
please come. 뭐야? 뵙기를. 죄송했다.
다 군롱 의원기 디바이 최종의 최대 양아의 대체 나야 공배 원게 되지 저게 다디 거다 그런 티와타네 공배 원게 지산다 공반이 공배 원게 다야 디바 치주용 그래시래 공반이 게 미게 니레 윤게 미게 레니 윤ing보네 꾸네 땐 어느 곰 렌장 망도 제바오서 지산데네게 미게벨레 나다 미게벨레 배직 기디나 미게벨레 곰시치게 제네 도시야 야야 제디베 곰베 오메 도시바나 게ten 사유데 티 미가바디 다체와 차유리에서 나 기벨레 나 개와데 야네 야도 곰베 오메 야세야스 도시데 레다 몽부체데 아네
All good, thank you.
아네 개와디 아네 니베체와리에서
Croissant. Then so going to the Geshe Thubten Rabten. Then so Sabo Chempo Sector Yamana up.
난 첨부스나데 개월에 개월에 사기로 디벌에 디벌에 사기로 디차산 딱 균형부 제디 디킬로 마서나 대직샤니 이제 숨자전 가sam제 첨부 자기로 킬로망아 자기로 디나신 미개외 직제니 이제 숨제된 차산 도묘디 개와디 그 미개와디 뉴버체르와 개와의 직제니 이제 숨제 야네 양도 제도데 개와디 뉴버체르고와 디소르와데
Second of the
네
six.
차빈 샘제 살직 마도 맞으면은 빈 샘제 젤레 뉴비 삼바데 야네 양도 개와나 디 뉴버체체 살직 마도 맞으면 살직 니 마도 맞으면은 디 뉴버 총아 자그로와 지다다 개회레 하는 저기 되네게 개회레 야네 양도 지어도 다디 개회디다 뉴버 쳐차죠 다 살직 마도 니스마도 맞으나 디 뉴버 총아 차라 지다다 공배 원게 제다들 디 최종의 계시 송도와
Second of the six is that of habituation. So similar to Venerable Sepal's question earlier. So we see here, let's read it. This is having engaged in virtuous or non-virtuous actions for a long time, such that one has become accustomed to them through repetition. This second point by which karma is made heavy, that of habituation, we can appreciate how if one does something just once or twice, does not have much habituation, therefore one's being drawn towards such activity is quite weak. Whereas if one has habituation, one is readily drawn towards such activity. And therefore one is going to accumulate many karmic imprints. Each karmic imprint on its own may be growing in strength because of the strength of the habituation, from factors such as taking pleasure, liking, seeing what one does as good, or there could be many small imprints, but stacked together, they add up to something significant. So it can go in either way. But what it comes down to, again, with both virtuous and non-virtuous karma, if one has developed a habituation, this will add to the strength of the karma created.
안다디 공배 원게 체와 체중 개발시 당 오외 원게 대시 링아 유숨제다 만족에 미가 주여와 대취리 당 오외 제반나 관수 주나데 수 체와레 수 디파이트 총아레다나 원이 링아기 든 치마레 나마나마 지신 이게 숨는 나마나마레 치마치마 지오스
Kosa. Kosa ni nekona atuyachikia. Läkaren fick alltså chiwa kikolekesun tege chua. Ile ditam shuk dan super shukche posuk chunso. As an age kane ayanse shuk sekube.
이 슈글람나 디고레 뉴발람나 디고 지버로 뉴바이니시 다디디 킬로자 치키 야키 셰마 그런 뉴바다 대슈크 티사 디고르와.
So on the point of habituation, I was just checking. My habituation here is to say the strength of the karma when the term is weight, but the meaning is the same. So I was just checking if there's any fault for my habituation. So in this context, if I'm saying strength, I probably mean weight. Anyway, it comes down, Geshe says, the same thing. Now the third point. So I just prefer to translate this as entity. This is the same word as entity or essence. The third one, entity. In the case of the 7 actions of body and speech, each preceding one is heavier than the subsequent one. Whereas with the 3 actions of mind, each subsequent one is heavier than the preceding one.
제자다 류가 이 둔보디 가르치세 세네다 에네 남봉한테 소쳐바다 마침발렘바다 데네기 로임레베 주인리베 디시디 다줌바시바나 다보 치마치마레 nga마nga마 지신세되다 소쳐바다 마침발 다보 소쳐바디 다 마침발디 뭐디 숨나시 나네다 디바 지당 오요건에 기시도 소치비 디바디 디바차와리 에서라 디바차와리스 안데네 디바 차와지 디올라 안에 마침발림비 디바티 디바 차와지 안 디올라다 로엠스 되네 디올라야 준시에린 서로디네 다 치마세 디링아 융아 뒤에제 다 되네기 나류 숨딜라다 디시 되네 나기 대 주인 참아 치수가 캬시게 주이시에디 차와라 차거로와 되네 참아지야디 딜레드 총아디시 디오데드 즉습세티는 타마디 나샤르디수 치마랭 제까지 바르시발랭 가망가마디기 채와레스 무요고니 셰드 다 이유고네 기셰드 다 나망한데 치마디기 채차고 레셰레 베네 납셈 뉘셈 로다소바이나라 납셈 딜레 뉘셈데 디바 채와레 뉘셈 딜레 다 로다 채와 디숨나네 다 로다 디바 치쇼레스 오다 오요고니 지단에 코라 다 디버거기 체유체기에서 지금 오요고니 셰반 독세세
그래 그랬다도 직치담세서 그래서 참참 이 키아파 여섯 에나
지대도 연구로 와야 되네
제 데리
말단 나데
kuma kyapne chama
말에 다 대시 강에 가르쳐 꿀롱을 권에 채와래 시소하자 꿀롱 권에 집에는 다 변에 제바다 안에 꾸마꾸에다 꿀롱 가르 숙시에는 디체 차르고 와 권유배 선비 꿀롱 가르 숙시에는 디체 차르 디 꿀롱 권에 채와도 샤살로다 변에 소쳐바다 꾸마꾸어니디 지단에다 수치에서는 꿀롱 지시마셔바는 오요건 차는 소쳐바 채와를 꾸마 추와래라와 로임 추와래라와 디 꿀롱 권에 계시도 딜레는 로임 채와 차 용거래 꾸마 채와 차 디바 채와 사 용거를 꿀롱 덮 채외다 진짜 꿀롱 덮 채 원기디 대신에 휴스다 꿀롱 덮 채 원기 가리 레람 가리 셰베나 꿀롱 같이 덮 채는 수덮 채나 니디버리 채 차거래잖아 다들 그 지단다 꿀로다 디네기 끼지 마셔 봐자 지단 그런 오해고네서 지단의 그런 뉘버디 가르치게 돼서네 안 되네 되는 예서
So what we see then from this is that if we look at the 3 physical non-virtues, killing is by way of its entity heavier than stealing, which itself is heavier by way of entity than that of sexual misconduct. And there's similar sequence for the verbal non-virtues, that lying is heavier than that of divisive speech, which itself is heavier than harsh speech, and all 3 are heavier than the final one of speaking for no particular purpose. The sequence is the opposite for the mental non-virtues, where wrong views is the heaviest, with harmful intent being lighter than wrong views, and then covetousness is the lightest of the 3. So this is the sequence by way of entity, but there are other factors which can impact a particular action. So one shouldn't take that every instance of one type of non-virtue is because it's in that class, it's worse or not as bad as another, because there are so many factors, in particular that of motivation, but others too, which can impact the severity of the karma created, or the strength or the weight of the karma created. So, in terms of entity, this is the division of weightiness, but it doesn't dictate that every act of stealing is lighter than killing, or every act of sexual misconduct is lighter than every act of stealing or killing.
나 시군에 나 지게 지난 나때 시군에 내 디바 치죠 우리 애들에 지산 시군에 체다가다 책에서는 상계다 최 운견주 난 라마 난 라마 남라 팬에 제바이나 펜바 제반에 펜바 채와다 펜 채와다 네바 제반에 디바 채와 용거리 해서 시유권에.
The fourth of the six is that of the bases. This is what is benefited or harmed, such as the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, and the Gurus.
배나 저기 직수로 쉐베나 직수로 쉐베나 지다양아 저기 미션다 인가 저기 로고치리 직수 쉐바당 안에 야 안에 라마다 기르 상예리아 겐들이야 직수 쉐바네 디버스 시그레스네 안에 겐들다 라마리아 수시에데 디버 쉐바레서 디나시 야 저기 로보다 디니게 때 미규머치리 직수 쉐바당 소소게 파마라 직수 쉐바네 거리디 부치그레스네 파마라 직수에데 디버 쉐바레서 세상디 그 디니게 시 직수 쉐샤기 유기 차네 시세디 직수 쉐샤기 유시월 제 유기 차네 다 디버 치쇼 개발 연구를 했어요.
If you take the illustration of harsh speech, if one swears at one's friend or at one's Lama or an ordained person, certainly the non-virtue is going to be heavier from swearing at one's Lama or ordained person than at one's friend. And similarly, and this is because of being a field of benefit. And then similarly, in terms of speaking harshly to one's friend, again, or to one's parents, the weight of the non-virtue will be far heavier if one speaks harshly to one's parents because of the benefit they bring than to one's friend.
야, 어디니게다. 디니 내가 봤을 미팅비 초 지도 녀바니 지수 최바도 지도 녀바르 녀바르 미기베레 랑테 둘라스 지니 개원이 지야 미제바오세 다데네게 나게디나 미가와 짱짱 제서서다 초 지도 녀바서 게디나 미가와 짱짱 제데 제되제 안에 다데네게 지수 최바도 녀바르 녀바르 제바서 디니 용으로다 디네게 걔네 마시바도 디비레가 짱짱 디네게 제바나데 개와지 감바제 개와기네 마제바나 니 개와 미가와 제데 미와 슈치야 차그래서 다 가브레 디바사 가브레 아직 개와 제바나 디 개와디 미가와 되스 니와 총아 차기리 해서 그러다 지다네 다 도스네 녜마게ቷ네 기시한데
Das ist der Exemplar, das ist die ganze und so. Wenn die Platte, die Druck da und tun kann das Ruben, so schiege kann das zum Du. Wenn ich Lama dann den Druck, die Druck mal anstand, nur Sapo. Jena, den ich die Tempo sage, jene Lama, ist der, ist nicht.
디 차가 제제 당기도와 대신 아주 꿀롱을 토하는 시에서와 꿀롱 같이 숙체는 콩도 수신는데 디바 시에서게 직시에서와 다디바 꿀롱을 되는 삼루 꿀롱 콩도 숙체 대셔 숙체와데 체육군이 디바 사단 시에서와 다 꿀롱나 디네 가야 마시바 지단디 디 콩소 줘바다 마진발레 디바 수치기래서는 마진발레 마치기 가소 줘바 치기여서 디셰로와 다양 개발도 누두스네 담 대시고네 다 야, 아니 디버사서 유기 찬의 셰반은 때 디버스 시기를람나 유상계다 라마다 아니 파마를 제 지수 셰반의 디버체와 샤날 디셰반의 디버 총아래서 유기 찬다 디나데다 다양 굴로다 제제 다바네 아직 내서 가르와
Subbabus.
내가 그런 기술을 지당도 디버체와 사상 디버체와 용당들 간대 용것은 굴롱의 돈의 디버체와 지 용거래서 그런 모여 전에 디버체 용거래서 안에 콘자저 디버사서 유의 전에 안에 지게 용거래서 어두선 안에 공배 돈에 안에 지 최종 용거래 사실 시기도 와다 용당도 최종 용당이 가르가르 용거래서 용당 된데 여러스 마 기술 용당 마선
With basis, and in fact, all of these, one should take this as clear guidance, but not assume it is necessarily pervasive, because there are other factors which come into play, such as motivation and so forth, and exactly what one is doing. So these one should take as the way that the weight of the karma is impacted, but whether karma is heavy or light isn't solely dependent on only one factor, but there are many factors coming together. This is just to draw out, this presentation is to draw out the various ways that the weight of the karma can be impacted, so that we know what to guard against or how to engage skillfully in virtue. Then to the fifth, similarly adhering to the discordant side. This is spending one's whole life committing non-virtuous actions with singular conviction and not engaging in even one virtue. What this is saying, that those who only engage in virtue will be living a life of great meaning. Those, though, on the opposite end, who only engage in non-virtue, will certainly not. Most will be somewhere in between, depending on the individual, how much they may have an inclination towards one or the other. But what is particularly harmful is those who are only on the side of non-virtue.
Adi di kewa chibara taji de kewa chanya je diwa macheba na chiba chen macheba na kewa shuche ya gabriel kewa so ya diwa sawe na then diwa kewa di an ji chunga de chagoro wa.
And the direction to try and build ourselves towards is to be someone who singly adheres to the concordant side, in other words to the virtuous side, where non-virtue becomes something quite foreign to us, that the mind is becoming so developed that one is engaging wholly in virtue. This is the direction to build ourselves in.
Dene kiwele cheba sida midi me choba dwesen tawade na tachumba ro chagiro tachumba tiki chagiro dene ge ledi kita kiwele kewa chuchimbu chagiro.
And the final of the six, clearing away the discordant side. So the fifth was singularly adhering to it, and here it is clearing it away. This is giving up the side of non-virtue, becoming free from attachment and trading in virtuous actions. So this would be a being such as an arhat, who has completely cleared away the discordant side.
Then dine shitting less, and then dine the shaba chibare that is shitting mark sunda. Da dang, Momber shenda, Nimbo me, Yunjen, Sweden Shin, Shile Juwe le, Geda Mige. Namga Chimbote, Dele Kewa, Keochuba, Tzumberki, source.
Lama Tsongkhapa then draws from the second source, the Nakajuna's letter to a friend. There are 5 ways that non-virtuous and virtuous karma become great: persistence, strong adherence, no antidote, and a basis with foremost qualities or of primary importance. Among these, strive to practice virtue.
And she Tibetan Kawakine Maduba said, "Oh, the cheaper Chagidoa." And Yenden saw then Shili Juma said that Yenden Sangeta Chaju Sambada on Lamanum, then she gone and the deeper Chava said Chavore, Gana Migi Chena Mapotes, on Dushin that gave it, the negative gave it and Kawale Chava, Migi and Migole Chava. Don't I did she Chibada?
It's a kind of
And she saw deeper the Shazan, Tata, Mumber Shena, Nimbome, Yende Sort and Shile, Juile, Geda Migi Nama Chimbo de Dele Keochula, Tumber Yitine Zada, Kivina Kidina, Keola Kanyatsun Piche, what is that? Dela Keotsuna, Dele Keotsuna, John Kivichula Tumber Kisen. Dine is that Kivich or come to the Kelly, Petition to Corres Sondo.
Starting, the order is a little mixed. They're starting with the second line, that of persistence. So persistence then is also something that serves to increase the weight of the virtue or non-virtue. So persistence we have presented before with habituation. So when one is deeply habituated to something, one perseveres in something. So therefore, even in the process of building up the habituation, whilst one perseveres, one will be developing strong virtue or non-virtue. Strong adherence, then strong adherence points to the motivation, whether one has a powerful motivation for the virtue or non-virtue, and one would incorporate the presence of the afflictions or the absence of the afflictions having an impact on the motivation. So this then is the strong adherence, and no antidote. So this is where one, like we had above, where someone who just doesn't accumulate virtue, because virtue serves as an antidote to non-virtue, or the more normal presentation of a lack of an antidote, where one doesn't regret what one has done, learn from one's mistakes, try to improve and do better. And then the second line, for us the third line, and a basis with foremost qualities or primary importance. So this then refers to what we had above as the fourth point as basis. So the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, and the Gurus, and one's parents. So these bases of virtue. So if one is harming them or benefiting them, the weight of the karma is that much stronger. So these are there are 5 ways. So the third line in the Tibetan is our first line. So maybe you'd say these are the 5 ways that our non-virtuous and virtuous karma become great. Russell. Can delege worship to Faki. And dine di di karinaya mandruk dinga gave the number to Kube.
Dinga side deshi dinigi kewasaya gine shukche yon da migawa dinga lechinde ke migo shukche yorwa dine shukche yongyoza migawa dine shukche yongza jeda danga jogi kedine migawa mo enza ngewe jelo zene tuko res gewe kanto de chego reset kanjeli migawa sagyo mare sigorda.
And then the final line, among these, strive to practice virtue. This is quite clear. Strive to practice virtue, turn away from non-virtue. We have guidance here on 5 ways that virtuous karma can become great. So accomplish these in relation to virtuous karma and turn away from non-virtuous karma.
대양 건조라 소바 윤대대 된바 시단 판마라 소 판도비 신이수 체와 체외가 오세 지사다 되니게 다른 디스고를 되려 대지시 다른 같이 시권에 안내가 소리 개와 사바네 개와 체와다 미가 사바네 미가와 체와 용다데 지상 건조라 소바 건조 상예 최 안에 숨체 되려 대양 윤대대 된바 대지 자주 선바 냠네 지게 참니치 냠네 지게 나 소비 연대대 땜바 대티시체 안디가라 파마나소 파마세 집에네 안디니 시간도 안디니게 판도베시 니수 체베 안에 대랑 안에 땡 제바네 다 개와체와다 디버체와 모르세데 다 나디 디레샤스.
In this quotation from Letter to a Friend, we see that it says there are 5 ways, but if we count, there are 4. Persistent, strong adherence, no antidote, and then the third line, a basis. So that's 4. But now Lama Tsongkhapa explains how the basis has 2 parts. There are 5 because of the division of the basis into 2. A basis endowed with foremost qualities, such as the 3 jewels, and that would include the Lama too, and a basis of great benefits, such as one's parents.
디버 사바나네 디버 치중 간의 용거래 개와 치중 간의 용거래 세대 다 디버 치중 요나데라 안에 심벌 마소나 두거레스 꿀롱게 슈치고 침보원게 슈치원게 다 디버 슈치바사 용거래 안에 야직 꿀롱게 계시마샤바체 야 곰베원게 가세네 디버장에 야세 디버체 곰바이네 곰베원게 디버체바디야 디버디 슈치야요야 한 개와이네 개와 슈치야요야 안디나시 모여고네 셰바나다 저기 소셰바티 디버 쳐바체 아니 디나지 소셰 빵바디다 개와 숙체차로와 준바와 디나 모여체네 디네레스 다 시고네 셰바나 다야 네마니 다대가네 시 상예 라마다 상예다 제주 셈바다 랑게 파마다 라레 진첸보다 아니 양아직 연된 침벌이야 도신 디버 사바이나 디저지 디버 체 용거리스 개와 사바이나 딜레티네 개와 사바네 개와 체 용거리스 시권에 나야 지금 그디 있나 하는 개와 장량은 제 개와 장량 디버 균에 지금에 봤나 개와 축체 이해만 차세 니나신 아니 미와 장량 제네 개와 균에 마주바이나 근데 되네기 토네 아니 디버디 축체 차요 에서 어도시네 나님 보디 디네리로 지산 디버 치중 용다데 또 신의 금세 주의원에 가서 용다 죽도 고죽.
So these 6 ways by which either we create a heavy non-virtue or virtue, one should come to learn and watch one's behavior, ensuring that in one's attempts not to engage in non-virtue, one certainly doesn't do so in the ways described here. And in terms of engaging in virtue, to try and do so in the ways described here. So looking through the 6, the first is that of conditioning. So this we can then understand as motivation. So if one's motivation is deeply virtuous or non-virtuous due to the presence of strong afflictions, this is something to watch. Take a moment, cultivate your virtuous motivation before engaging and try to do so in a way that's powerful and then sustained throughout the activity. And likewise, when one notices one's motivation is tainted by the afflictions, rather do not engage, rather restrain oneself. Then moving on from motivation, that of habituation, where you recognize you have non-virtuous habitual tendencies, pay attention to that. Try and break that habituation. Be very aware that this is a stronger karma that one has created and will be carrying into our next lives. And in terms of virtuous, wholesome habits, try and strengthen those. Have those become what defines your personality. And then the third, that of entity. So this would be, for example, being very careful not to kill because we see of just how strong it is, not to lie and deceive others in this way because we recognize that it is powerful, and rather make this a strong commitment to not take life, to not lie, and so forth. Then in terms of the basis, in our interactions with others, we should be very aware of those who have foremost qualities and relate to them with minds of strong virtue, recognizing that with a good motivation in our interactions with the 3 jewels, the lamas, and so forth, one will create extensive amounts of merit. So too, beware of those who show great benefit. So they're those of foremost qualities, those of great benefit. Here we think of our parents. Be very clear what relationship we have with them, how we interact with them. Or there may be, depending on people's circumstances, friends in your life or other relatives in your life who have shown you great kindness. Be aware of that and engage with them, knowing that one has a responsibility to repay that kindness, particular to them, to generate a powerful motivation and act under it in relation to them. And then the last 2, whilst they're singularly adhering to the discordant side, probably that's not the case. And what we are striving towards is to move away from the adhering to the discordant side and ever more towards clearing away the discordant side. In other words, transforming our personality so that we are naturally inclined to virtue and naturally disinclined to non-virtue. Particular, look at your behavior, your physical behavior. Look at your speech and look at the motivating minds and try and steer these three in the direction of virtue and thereby break one's habituation to non-virtue. So take these 6 and try and cultivate them in one's life, in one's lived experience. And this way, one can accrue great virtue very quickly.
Lesa di legi migo chuda ne le sawalan karakara tungen kara legi chik lamyon su zoba chile tungen karakara changu gore di ma sawa na legi lamyon su zoba chagyo omrase di ne su di ago di che And that dene ane anjuge da le tiba sang du tiba de ane chechung kan des yung la de da chechung yo da de ya da ju ko mi da ka tru ko ne dus ne tiba che yo da de re sa o dus che ne da tiba che yo da de re sa da ni su di ting a zu ge da ha ko cha go lo wa da de rin ti re da da.
This weekend, then, we've concluded looking at the 10 non-virtuous actions. I spoke this morning about how to meditate on them, which incorporates turning the mind towards their opposite, the 10 non-virtues. So I encourage you to take that meditation to heart, engage in their meditation. That is how one strengthens one's habituation to the side of virtue, breaking habituation to the side of non-virtue. And we also, throughout this presentation, spoke about the various components, the 4 components of each karmic action that are required for it to be complete. So this is important to have some understanding of, to recognize where one has accrued a complete karmic action and a complete karmic imprint, recognizing that if it's unvirtuous, we should purify it because it has the capacity, it has the capacity to propel a rebirth in the lower realms. And likewise, through the understanding of what makes a complete non-virtuous action, we have an understanding of a complete virtuous action, the opposite, and strive to do so. And then finally, we've looked at the heaviness of karmic, how to impact the weight or the heaviness of karmic seeds. Here, in particular, turn away from strong non-virtue and, to the best extent we can, strengthen our habituation to virtue, and try to do so, in particular in the way Guy advised here, because this is a quick path by which one can accrue extensive virtue.
All right,
Okay, then thank you. We can conclude there for this weekend. Thank you.